All right, let's jump right in. Every modern business today is caught in this impossible bind, right? The demand to innovate at lightning speed on one side, and the need to lock everything down and stay secure on the other. Today, we're going to talk about how you solve that tension, how you can turn that constant risk into genuine resilience.
I mean, you feel it every day, don't you? The pressure from one side of the house is go faster, ship new features, now. And on the other side, you have this rising tide of cyber threats that just gets scarier by the day. For so long, the thinking has been that you have to pick one. You sacrifice speed for security or security for speed. But what if that whole idea is just a false choice?
So, before we can really get to the solution, we have to understand the problem. And it all starts with the way we used to do things, an approach that, let's be honest, is fundamentally broken for the world we live in now. And this really says it all. The old way treated security like a final inspection gate, a roadblock at the very end of the line. It was slow, people were stuck in their own silos, and security was just this thing you bolted on right before shipping, usually when it was way too late and expensive to fix anything. The new way we're going to explore, it completely flips the script. It's fast, it's collaborative, and it bakes security right into the recipe from the very first line of code. And look, sticking with that old, clunky model isn't just inefficient anymore, it's becoming financially catastrophic. The numbers behind the cost of doing nothing are, well, they're pretty staggering. The sheer scale of this is almost hard to get your head around. By 2025, the global cost of cybercrime is projected to hit $10.5 trillion a year. To put that in perspective, if cybercrime were a country, it would have the third largest economy on Earth, right behind the US and China. That's what we're up against. Okay, so that's the massive global number. But for businesses in the United States, that threat gets very, very personal. The average cost of a single data breach, just one incident, has now climbed to over $10 million. So this isn't some distant, abstract problem. It's a direct and immediate threat to your bottom line. And you can really see the gap right here. US companies are paying more than double the global average when they have a data breach. It's like there's a security tax just for operating in this environment, which makes getting proactive about security an urgent financial imperative. But you know, numbers on a chart can feel a little abstract. So let's make this real. We're going to look at 3 landmark security failures that show exactly what happens when this stuff goes wrong. Let's start with Equifax. In March of 2017, a patch for a known critical vulnerability was released. It was available, they just didn't apply it. So by May, attackers were in, and for 76 straight days, they were stealing data, completely undetected. This wasn't some kind of genius-level sophisticated hack. It was a failure of the absolute basics, of simple security hygiene. And that one mistake ended up costing the company over $1.4 billion. Now, if Equifax was about failing to do the basics, SolarWinds was a total game changer. This was different. Here, the hackers didn't attack their targets directly. They went after a trusted software vendor and secretly injected malicious code into a routine trusted software update. The result was that 18,000 organizations, even the Pentagon, were compromised by a tool they were supposed to trust. The terrifying lesson was that you have to secure your entire development process, your software factory, because the attack can come from the inside. And then came Log4Shell, which exposed a completely new layer of risk. A massive flaw was found in a tiny, free, open-source logging tool, a piece of code that was buried deep inside millions of applications. The crisis wasn't just patching the flaw, it was the global panic to even find it. The lesson here was a big one. You simply cannot secure what you don't even know you're using in the first place. Okay, these failures, they paint a pretty grim picture, I know, but they also point us directly toward the solution. They show us we need a completely new way of thinking and working, and that new way is called DevSecOps. So what exactly is DevSecOps? Well, it stands for Development, Security, and Operations. But it is so much more than just mashing those words together. It represents a massive cultural shift. It's a new philosophy that says security isn't some other team's problem. It's everyone's job, and it has to be woven into every single step of the process. And the core concept that makes all of this possible is something called shifting left.
Imagine your development process is a timeline going from left to right. The old, broken way put all the security checks way over on the right at the very end. Shifting left is the simple but incredibly powerful idea of moving those security activities to the very beginning of the timeline. Because finding and fixing a flaw on day one is cheap and easy. Finding it the day before you launch, that's a catastrophe.
But here's what might be the most surprising part of this entire thing. While new tools are important, a successful transformation is overwhelmingly about people. It's 80% about culture and process. You can't just buy a piece of software and call yourself DevSecOps. The real, lasting change happens in how your teams think and how they work together.
And this quote right here, it just nails the heart of this new mindset. It's about breaking down those old adversarial walls between developers and security. When security becomes a shared responsibility, you stop pointing fingers at each other and start solving problems together.
Okay, so the what and the why are starting to make sense. But you're probably thinking, how do you actually do this? It can feel like this massive, overwhelming mountain to climb, which is why the experts recommend a much more manageable, step-by-step approach.
It's a simple idea called crawl, walk, run. In the crawl phase, you start small. You don't try to change the whole company overnight. You pick a single pilot project, you introduce some basic automated scanning, and you get some early wins. In the walk phase, you take what worked and you start to scale it up, creating templates, training your developers, and by the time you get to run, you've built a real system of continuous, automated security that works across the organization. It turns a massive change into something you can actually do. So, we've gone all the way from the risk to the solution, and moving from that old, vulnerable position to one of real, baked-in resilience isn't just a good idea anymore. It's absolutely essential for survival. So here are the key actions you need to take to start that journey. It really boils down to three things, especially for the leaders out there. First, you have to champion the culture. This change has to come from the top and be seen as a core business value. Second, you have to invest strategically. That means funding both the tools for automation and the training your people need to use them effectively. And third, start now, but start smart. Use that crawl, walk, run plan to build momentum instead of trying to do everything all at once and burning out. Which leaves us with one final crucial question to ask about your own organization. Take a good, honest look. Is your security still something that gets bolted on at the very end, a last-minute check? Or are you ready to start baking that resilience in right from the very beginning?